All right, we're back with another episode. This is, a weekend edition. It's been a long week, and we're heading into hopefully a great weekend for everybody. And I want to take a minute and thank the sponsors. Head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com. Check out all the different sponsors that sponsor the show. There's so many. I can't thank them enough, especially this week, AmpSmart. We're closing out the week with AmpSmart. They're offering a free home security system. If you go and you set up your home security system with them, they give you all the internals, everything you need, the panel, the whole bit. Go check them out. I put the link down below. Everybody's looking for security right now, and the best place to start is probably a home security system. So I want to thank AmpSmart. I got a special guest today, probably we don't talk every day, but one of my best good buddies in the business in terms of bouncing ideas off of, understanding kind of if I'm crazy, or just a guy I love to talk and chat with to see if, my head's screwed on straight sometimes. We got the one and only Brent Brabant. What's going on?
Hey, John, how's it going?
What's up, brother? You've had a wild year and a half, and we'll get to what you're into today. A lot of different stuff going on. Why don't you give everybody an update on everything you've been doing, everything that's going on with you, and what direction you're going in now?
It's actually definitely been a weird roller coaster getting out of the service. I met you, just before I got out of the service, about a year before I got out. I met you at trade shows. I think we met at like an NRA show, and then followed up at SHOT Show, and then we did that once or twice.
I've
and then
been closer to 3 years now, right? I would, a little over that, might around that timetable. So
yeah, I used to take leave just to go attend those shows for when I worked for Tech Taylor, Gregos Precision, that conglomerate. So I actually, I ETS'd out of the Army and started working for them. I did a whole year contract working for them as their SOCOM and police program manager, helping design, pouches and gear and get them to the people that need them. And that was actually a really fun job. I really like nylon stuff.
Gear.
Yeah. I was a geardo, man. That's the word that will definitely be more associated with me and my time in the military was I was a geardo. If I could find a new way to attach something, to carry something a better way, I did it. I never used issued stuff.
Now, nylon's probably been an area that the market's grown leaps and bounds, and you got to see it from the inside in your time. Now, you got some new stuff going on. You've been training. You've been doing some training. You've been teaching a little bit. Tell me a little bit about how this transition's been going for you and what you get your hands in.
So I, like all military vets that get out, I bounced around trying to figure out what I really wanted to do. And, I took a page out of a couple people's book and started my own LLC and did it for consulting, and then did one for training. And I started training people up in the Pacific Northwest region. It started out just, 5-6 man classes. And then next thing I know, I had to hire 5 or 6 AIs because I was, I had a class of 50, and, you want a good instructor ratio, but you also want everyone to come out and play, you want everyone to shoot. But the biggest part is we wanted to build a community up here. And that's something that's really hard in the gun community because everybody's so jaded about one thing or another. So we started building a pretty good community up here in the Pacific Northwest. And about once every month, obviously not because of the COVID stuff, we do a free class that'll cover a topic that we allow as many people want to show up, and, as long as we have AIs. And the last one I ran was a vehicle CQB class where, I paid to have 2 vehicles out there that we shot through the windshield, shot through the, windows. A couple people shot the actual, vehicles on accident, but they were learning. And, that was all free. That was just trying to give back to the gun community. And I mean, we have dudes that, that was their first ever formal class that had, ARs with iron sights to, active duty military, active duty law enforcement that showed up, and they're like, this is the first time I've ever shot through a windshield. So that was really cool.
It's a great community when it wants to be, right?
It is. It can turn on a dime.
Yeah. You and I have been through, so much of that and so many renditions of that and seen it play out. It's whether you're instructing, and I've never been on the instructing side, I use air quotes around that, you know, if I RSO'd and stuff, sure. But the business is so interesting, and I try to always give people, part of the reason I started this podcast is not just to talk about the defense, self-defense, preparing your body, preparing your mind, but also give people insight into the internals of the business and what it's like to actually work and cash a check in this business, which you've done. People don't understand what's really involved and what goes into it.
Yeah, it's really hard, and you know, you constantly have to put yourself out there, and a lot of people aren't used to that. Like, you know, just like, you know, all your social medias, right? They're your name. Mm-hmm. It's not weird anagram. It's not some, you know, just weird stuff. It's your name, you know, it's John B. and mine's, you know, Brent B. So like when you look me up, everyone just deep dives into my history, and, you know, that's where I'm like, hey, look, this is who I am. This is what I've done, you know, right, wrong, or indifferent. You know, you got to put yourself out there, and then every time somebody shows up to a class, they always sign up for another one. So that's what's fun.
Yeah, it's there's good and bad that comes of that. I mean, look, you put yourself out there, you're going to take the bullets. You're going to have detractors. That's just the way it's always been. That's the way it's going to be. In the end of the day, you have to do the best you can to just put the best foot forward and be the best representation of you that you can be. And there's no manual, right? There's no cheat sheet. Nobody's giving you the secret formula. You're just kind of out there slinging it. And what I try to explain to people all the time, whether you're an instructor or you work for a brand, there's no one's giving you the workbook on how to approach this. So I've always used my name, and it's funny you bring that up because you know I'm a huge advocate of that. I would in a second be in approval of any legislation that forced people to use their name unless they owned a business. And I think all accounts should be verified, because I think too many people hide behind BS. And, you know, you learn in this business that you have to take people no matter what, how you take them, because it's such a, you know, a dog eat dog or piss on somebody's lawn business. But at the end of the day, there is a great side to it too that forces you to want to give back, because there's so many good people coming in it. But it's still very young, still very juvenile, still has a lot of maturation to go through. And there's a lot of people that still have to mature within it. And that's all part of the game. And that's all part of the gig. You and I have lived through it. We've seen it. You know, we've seen a few people come and go. We've seen a lot of different players in the industry, or try to be, come and go, and it's not what people think it is. It's actually good, hardworking people cashing a paycheck, trying to make a living.
Yeah, and at the root of it, it's people that want to give back. Like, I've gotten real lucky up here. There's a great community that, like, so many people will call and volunteer, you know, to be RSOs that I've either taught before or they were in the military with me. And they're like, hey, man, you know, I see what you're doing. I see how much you're trying to give back to, you know, hey, I'll volunteer right now to come RSO. So, you know, that saves me a couple bucks paying some guy. And there's a lot of other instructors out here that, like, you know, we all communicate and talk to each other when, you know, like right now there's no ranges that are open. So I have a private range that I own with a buddy. And I've been letting other instructors use my range because all the ones that they were teaching on that they paid for are all shut down due to COVID stuff. So we all got together, and I was like, hey, man, look, you know, you get this day to this day, you get this day to this day, so we all can still make a little money together. And, you know, it was really cool to see people come together that, you know, technically we're all trying to get clients to pay us to teach them how to use firearms. But instead of trying to be, you know, dog eat dog, we're like, hey, man, you know, here's my range, no range fees. You don't have to pay me nothing. You know, just clean up when you're done. You have access to all my stuff, you know, go.
That's when the business is really amazing. You know what I mean? That's when the business really sings, you know, and then you've been lucky because you transitioned so seamlessly from working for the government to now private life, which, you know, most people struggle with that transition. We've talked about this before in past podcasts. You did it so seamlessly, maybe because the job was waiting for you, but you still go through that identification struggle, you know. But teaching, teaching's always been at your core, though.
Yeah, I got real lucky the last few years in the service being a weapons instructor, you know, teaching at the AMIC Academy, and I found that was the funnest time in the military. Like, that was worth all the dumb bullshit and everything else. Like, teaching, you know, a 3-week academy of, you know, rifle and pistol, and like watching dudes come in, you know, day one, and they don't really, you know, they can shoot decent, but they didn't understand all the science behind it. And then at the end, like when every soldier left, they're like, this is, you know, one of my favorite classes I've ever done. And I've been in for 20 years. And I'm like, wow, you know, that meant a lot to me, because when I started working, I only had like, you know, 6 years in the Army at the time. So I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'm doing something right.
You know, that's the best thanks you can get. That and a referral always, right? You know, are the best thanks you can get. But, you know, it's so hard for some guys, and we've talked about this, to transition seamlessly. You come out, you're able to do it, and now you're entering into a new chapter that I think will be super exciting for you, because getting to train, and I've seen it, training's a calling. And a lot of people, when I first started getting into social media and years ago, people were like, oh, he's trying to be an instructor. And I'm like, if you know me, I don't have the patience for that shit, even for a second. And I remember Tony, like yesterday, telling someone, Tony Seminat, Real World Tactical, telling someone, you don't know John. He has zero patience to do that. That's not, it's not my calling. It's not my forte. Teaching at any level is a calling, and you have to be willing to, you know, sit down and take the time and spend the time with people, because it's not easy. It's not something that just, you don't just wake up one day and say, geez, I feel like teaching and instructing. And you don't do it for the money. There's no money in it at any level.
Yeah, you break even if you're lucky.
You know, you're breaking even and maybe paying yourself for the day, but it's a week worth of preparation.
Absolutely. Like the only other thing I've been recently getting into is for the consulting side. We've been doing videos for companies, right? You know, Everyone's done that, but we started getting a lot of big hits. So the last video we just did, go check out Defender Armor. They sent us some plates, and we shot them up against some competitors and filmed it. And, you know, that's always good when a company reaches out to you to be like, hey, you know, would you mind taking what you've learned and stuff, and shoot these plates and video it and tell us what you think.
Yeah. Media is something you and I have talked a lot about. And even in the last, 18 months, we're always picking each other's brain, talking about media. Media is evolving so fast, and so many companies get it wrong. And I've had Tom Taylor on. I've had so many different guests on to discuss this. Media is just constantly evolving in the firearms business, and we're so behind. You know, what do you see when you look out there? Because I look at you as one of the smartest guys in the room. You have the background. You have the industry knowledge at the ground level. What do you see? So
the reason why I started doing videos is I got with one of these kids that I used to teach how to shoot back when he was about 18. He's 24 now, and he has a degree in actual doing videos, like video production, whatever it's called. And I think the biggest thing that I saw in the industry was there was people who were very good at cameras and knew how to, storyboard something out and make a video, but they didn't know anything about the firearm or, the gear or any of that. So when they made the video, they didn't use the firearm properly, or the gear looked all fucked up. So it was like, that's what people would pick at, right? It's like watching an Army movie and you just start picking out all the things that are wrong, right? But then there was people who were, all these qualifications and all this military, and they would set everything up, but then they would get a camera guy that didn't know what he was doing. So it was like one or the other. Because normally camera dudes, not knocking camera dudes, they're not normally like super gun guys. They might love guns, but they're not going out there every day training on them. So I found the special kid that, that's all he wanted to do, was like, hey, I just want to film stuff for the industry. He's like, I love guns. I can use them. I see where, all these videos are going in the industry, and, this is what I want to start doing. So I snatched him up as quick as I could. And I didn't want it to be like a review stuff where it's just like, my ugly mug in front of the camera talking about a gun. Like,
you want to put your spin on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we did a really good video for Killer Innovations for their Glock line. And it's, it's just a 2-minute artsy video that has, a good soundtrack, good build up. And like, when it got done, everyone looked at it, was like, okay, that's not a safe, clean, gun. That's a reliable gun. Like, they did some good stuff to it in that video. And that's kind of what we want to do.
Yeah, we can peel into so many topics because there's so much there. When people go out and look at the firearms business, what they don't understand, and this from being in the firearms industry, it's a situation where the companies, you have a lot of people in the boardroom, like you said, that don't necessarily understand the application of media or the platforms to which they're trying to speak to, or even the market they're trying to talk to. So there's a lot of, clouds, and you have to kind of sometimes sit with these brands and explain to them, hey, this is what we want to do. This is what it speaks to. And then flip the other side of the conversation is in the instructing world. We talked about it. You can't just get by and make money in the instructing. So you have to have other supplemental income, whether it leads to doing videos for brands, partnering with brands, sponsorships are one piece of the puzzle, a website, stuff you sell on the website, other things, and you start adding these different layers on, and that's how you make a living. But people who get out there, and we know the people that do it, that say, oh yeah, you can make, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year instructing. That's a very, very rare for most people. It's multiple side hustles coming together to form one consulting group or one main hustle. And you have to constantly have these conversations with brands. And there's very few brands, BB, that get it. We both know that, right? I've know that.
Absolutely. I've gotten super lucky to partner with a lot of brands that, they understand, like, hey, look, this is what I got to do. You're not going to see your product in there every single second, Because they want to,
I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of companies want to make it about the gun, and they want to constantly make it about the gun. And I'm one of the people in the room that's constantly trying to explain to them, you can't do that. Look at successful brands. It's not always about the Red Bull can. It's not always about the Monster can. It's not always about the Coca-Cola can. You have to start to grow. And the only way, part of the reason why I did the podcast, is the only way you're going to grow as an industry. Because you know this, you've worked in this industry for so long. Listen, is anybody designing a rail out there that's changing anybody's life?
No.
Is anybody designing a trigger out there that's changing people's lives? Now, I get product-specific videos, and so do you, right? There's a place for them. But you and I have said this. If I see one more Glock 19 video, I'm going to throw up. Half the,
that's why.
Yeah, half the time.
That's 100% why when we did the Killer Innovations one, I'm like, it has to be so different and so out there because, we are showing a slide, a barrel, a comp, a trigger, all done in a different fashion. But I was like, we need to show why it's different. We can't just be like, hey, get on the range, shoot a few rounds, say it's good, say it felt good in the hand. Like, there's 1,000 of those videos.
There's 1,000 of them. And what brands don't understand, and I went through this even in my last stop, and I went through this in every stop probably, actually, to be honest. And that's not a knock to anybody. It's just this is the state of the union right now. Everybody wants to make it about the product. And the problem with that is it becomes like QVC. And you may as well make a QVC video. You may as well go out and get, the ShamWow guy or whoever and have him get up there and do a thing. Because even like you look at Larry Vickers, certain people, they're starting to do movie reviews. They're starting to do different things. You have to start to build a lifestyle brand. And what's crazy is, I was saying this to John Lovell the other day, Warrior Poet Society. John, he's smart enough. He's so ahead of everybody else. It's not even funny. He's already got an app. He's already going into streaming. I'm like, why are you light years ahead of everybody else? You know what I mean?
Well, he does a good job of not trying to engage the haters.
Yeah, he just does his thing.
Yeah, he's like, I'm just going to do my thing. If people hate me along the way, that happens. But he's like, instead of trying to meet them halfway, he's like, I'm just going to keep doing me. And, he's very successful because of it.
Like, I ate shit for trying to bring fitness into shooting. I ate shit for such a long time. And I give Pat all the credit and Tony as some of the first, but like behind the scenes, I ate fucking piles of dog shit for bringing it in. And people, it just doesn't make sense. That's when the industry turns into an eat its own. But when you're trying to talk to these marketing directors and some of these people, see, I see it from the inside, and so do you. The business has gone through evolutions. One of those evolutions was we had a lot of old ad buyers running the industry, right? They came from an advertising background. They were used to calling Recoil or calling one of these publications and buying ads. That was how they did their stuff. Social media comes in, and slowly but surely social becomes the place to be. So the social media directors start to gain power, and so do some of the people running the social medias. And then as that started to evolve, now we're in a funky crossroads as a business where you have streaming, you have podcasting, and I've said it for a long time. You know this. I've banged this drum for a long time. If we keep continuing down the path of Instagram and photos being the place we go to consume, we're going to die as an industry. Because there's no context, there's no conversation. I'm not getting to know BB the person. I'm not getting to know the person behind. You know what I'm saying? So we're basically trying to create something that it's a photo at Instagram's never going to be an accurate depiction of what the firearms business is all about and where the passion really is. I took to podcasting because I'm a blabbermouth. I like to talk, so it's an easy you know what I'm saying? There's never been a thing in my life that you ever looked at, BB. We've known each other for a few years now, closely. You'd say he's in the right place. He's doing what he should be doing. And makes sense to me. But
yeah, the happiest I've seen you.
Yeah, and it has to evolve. The business has to evolve into these spaces. You've never had open architecture like you do now. I mean, some brands that haven't even gravitated towards YouTube, I'm like, are you guys fucking crazy? You know?
So I think that's the scary part if you're starting a new brand, you're going into the unknown, which obviously people don't like to do, but as soon as you get out there, you have to get on all these social medias. You have to, monitor what you say because you can't piss off anyone. A lot of people don't know how to handle trolls because they're going to get trolls. You post one wrong thing where, it looks like their finger's too close to the trigger or their weapon's on fire. And then,
that's when the gatekeepers come out. You're not allowed in this business.
Yep. And then, and then if they delete the photo, then everyone just, had already screenshotted it. And then it's like, well, this is what's going on. This is what they're doing. And it's like, everyone doesn't understand. Hey man, mistakes happen. They might send a guy out back real quick that doesn't know anything about guns to hold the gun. And they just snap a picture of him real quick to like throw up on the gram. And then they get eaten alive for it,
For no reason. And I'm going to say something with you on the line because you have the background and you have all the credentials. Nobody cares. You know what I'm saying? Nobody cares at the end of the day. The people that do care are the ones that know nothing about the firearms business, know nothing about, and at the end of the day, it's like, if you have that much time to go be a troll, especially on Instagram's turned into Tower of Babel, especially in that space. Like, give me a break. I had a guy that I think it was a few pictures back that brought up like my job 4 jobs ago. And I'm like, buddy, that was like 3 years ago. Like, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
it's even worse in the service. Like, I've been out of service almost 2 years now, and I still get trolls that talk about my service. And I'm like, they'll be like, oh, well, you didn't do shit, and you never did this or that. And then, every now and then I'll engage them and like send them certificates of everything I've done. And then they're like, okay, well, this guy said you were a piece of shit in this platoon. And I'm like, in Iraq in 2009, that was like 11 years ago, dude. I was 19. Like, who wasn't a piece of shit at 19? Like,
I'm still one now. No,
yeah, like, but it's one of those things where like, you're like, okay, some dude who said they knew me, 11 years ago said I was a piece of shit. Well, thanks, man. Thanks. What do you want me to do about that? Like,
listen, it's never going to stop. It's because you know what you end up having? You have people that have a mentality out there that they see you as having something and they want to try to take it from you. It's like, he has what I want and I'm going to try to take it. And whatever it is, whatever the malfunction is, right? Like, they interpret it as, I need to take this from BB, right? So they view the best path to do that is to smear you, put you down, spread any disinformation, say something. I've reached a point, BB, honestly. It's not just in the firearms business, guys, in life. where you just got to kind of do your thing. And we were talking about John Lovell, where you just kind of do your thing and you're just like, whatever, man. If that's how you feel. Now, if it's a point worth debating, that's different, worth having a conversation about, okay, we'll have the conversation. But the reality is just too many people want to get into a Tower of Babel argument that goes nowhere, leads to nothing, accomplishes nothing, and makes no sense whatsoever. And that's part.
Yeah, no, I think I found two small miracles yesterday of arguing with somebody. And it wasn't an argument. It was just like, hey, man, you ask me whatever you want to ask me, and I'll answer everything. And if I have something to, to show proof, I'll show you proof. Just because I was like, I was just having one of those days. Yeah, I was bored. And, he asked, I said no. I sent him a certificate. He asked another thing. I said, yeah, I sent him a cert. And then, like, after the third question, he's like, dude, I think everything else is bullshit because he's like, you've answered everything and showed me a cert. He's like, I think it was just all rumors. I'm like, yeah, man, that's kind of what people do in life now is they just start some crazy ass rumors about somebody. And then once they start releasing memes on the internet, everybody else jumps on, all the meme lords. And I'm like, you guys are like, in your mid 30s, like you don't have anything better to do. Like,
you know what it is at the end of the day? This is all it is. At the end of the day, it's boredom and people just want to see if they can get under your skin or see if they can irritate you. And you know what I've dealt with, I don't have to tell you.
Crazy stuff.
It's insane on another level. Okay. And, I say to people like, are you even serious? Like, I just can't even acknowledge it anymore. I'm like, it's like Tower of Babel. Now, at the same time, I've been blessed because I'm someone, as you know, I'm more than willing. I'll put anybody on the podcast. I've gone on record and said it. I'll put my worst enemy on here. If anyone's out there that wants to come on, I just did it. I just had a guy on one episode ago that put something out there and I addressed it. And I said, come on the show. You want to debate it?
Come on down.
Yeah, you're the next contestant. The problem is more often than not, and you know this, BB, is when you know where the bodies are buried, less people are likely to come on. And that's the truth. They don't want to come on. They don't want it to go both ways. So the meme guys that hide behind the fake accounts, they want it to go one way. They want it to be a one-way thing. And it's not really the case. So at the end of the day, it's never going to be a two-way street, but you try to level the playing field, and that's what part of the show did.
No, and that's good. And we've been focusing on a lot of negative stuff. Let's get into some positive light.
Absolutely.
Something that we did the last 2 weeks, right? Because of all this COVID thing, there were so many new gun owners.
Yeah, let's get into that.
My local gun shop. They kind of messaged me because, I do all my FFLs there. I walk in, I can just run amok if I want to. They're so nice to me. They were like, hey, we keep getting requests on like, do you know any local trainers around? And I was like, yeah, here, give my name out. Give out my buddy Emily Larson's name. She's a real good instructor. She runs like all ladies courses. And then next thing I know, my phone was just blowing up. So what I did was, we scheduled out chunks of time for these people to show up. And let me tell you, the youngest lady that showed up was 42.
That's amazing.
So it was just, wonderfully, seasoned women, I think is the word I can get away with, that just bought a firearm for their first time, right? So we actually didn't charge any of these people. We're like, look, you bought a gun, you waited your 10 days, you got it, and this is like the second day you have it. Like, we're not going to charge you. We're just going to spend a whole day on the range just making you comfortable. And, I love teaching like tactical classes to the military and law enforcement, but I had such a blast teaching these new gun owners that by the end they left so enthused to actually own a gun, because you could tell before they were probably the people that voted against, they wanted more gun control.
Yeah.
And now they're like, now they're a little paranoid. They're scared of everything going on in the world. So they did what scared people do. They, buy a firearm. And the best thing we could do is be a good ambassador into the firearms world for them within their first few weeks of owning.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Those are encouraging numbers. And when we saw those numbers come out, I think we all weren't surprised because internally we were all kind of waiting for them, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I said the other day to someone that was actually negative on it, and I don't want to go down the negative rabbit hole because, it's easy to get there. But we were talking, we were having a debate, and I said, I don't care if one out of the 1 million convert, the additional 1 million that came over, because they pegged the Knicks check at 3.5 million. And to give everybody context, the reason the number keeps moving is that's the amount of background checks. Now, in states it varies. You don't need additional background checks if they went home with multiple weapons. So we don't know. Some people said 7 million new guns. Some people said 3.5, whatever. But the point being, depending on how the forms were done, we've had a 50% increase in what the numbers previously looked at, and we've already surpassed year-over-year numbers in many of the past 20 years, many of the years in the past 20 years. And I think that trend will continue into April. I think we'll have a big April. But
oh, yeah. Local gun store sold out.
Mm-hmm.
They asked me if I had random stuff lying around that they could put on consignment just so they had something.
Sure. Take it.
Yeah, I was like, here, I got a bunch of old rifles that I built. And they literally, then they cut me a check 3 days later because all of it sold.
Yeah. And, it's a good time to be, offloading some stuff or if you have the ability to, now is a great time to be doing it. But
I don't like the ammo prices.
The ammo prices are insane. And actually every instructor right now, that's what's killing them is ammo prices. So I don't envy that position for instructors, because even Tony was scrambling to get his hands on ammo. But it's really, really exciting and fun to see that many people come into the marketplace. And I'm excited for so many people out there that now have the opportunity to now work with and be a part of the community, especially folks like yourself. And like you said, if you can get 100 people, 50 people, 5 people out there and convert them. And I brought this point up to somebody else. Think of what this means for the FFL owners. A lot of these guys were so close to closing their doors, and now they're flush.
Now, business is booming, and there's too many people that are super negative about it. They're like, you can keep all your comments of like, oh well, they should have thought about that before. Now they're buying guns. I'm like, look, it's a chance to now teach them why they needed a gun before.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares how long it took them to finally own a firearm?
Yeah, who cares?
They now want to. It's our job as, responsible 2A, all that kind of jazz people to be like, hey, look, here's my range, show up, I'll give you some instructions and make you feel a little bit comfortable. It's our chance to be a good human being.
Such a great way to put it. It's amazing. Now, I want to jump to a fun topic, too, while I have you, because you have such tremendous insight, and it's fun to hear these things. I love doing this stuff. You walk around the shows. I was talking to you. You listen to Clint's twice. You walk around the shows. What are some brands you look at from afar that you love? And we'll get to brands we think we can fix. But what are some brands you love?
So the first one, I love the Enforce people.
Matt's great.
I like their products. Everyone, say what you want about them. They make a product for a certain customer. They're not trying to make the flashlight that you can run over with a tank. That's not their jazz. But the reason why I like Enforce is all the stuff I've ever gotten from them still works. But the people that work there are wonderful people. They've always been cool. They've always been upfront. They've always asked opinions, and if something ever did go wrong, I trust them that if I send it in, it'll either get fixed or I'll get a new one. You know what I'm saying?
It's a good one. It's a great one.
Yeah. Another product line I love is Killer Innovations. They make a bolt gun chassis. They make a bunch of Glock parts now, CZ, P10, and then the SIG 320. And I know the owner, and I met the owner at the gym the gym that we went to. And we just started working out. And then he was like, hey, you work for this company? I was like, yeah. And I was like, aren't you the owner of this company? He said, yeah. And then next thing you know, we started working out for like 7 months together,
Amazing.
And, he makes a wonderful product. And same thing, he treats all his employees like family, and that's rare to see. I love the Vector guys, the Chris Vector guys out of Cali.
Right.
Same thing, I've gotten to, test products for them too and shoot a lot of demos and stuff with them. And they're just wonderful people, who make a different product for a different client, And then I think the only other people I would say is TNVC, Tactical Night Vision Company. Everyone's trying to buy nods and get into that whole realm. And they do a great job educating the end user on what they need, what they want. And they try to, be as good as they can with their prices. So I think those are the main companies and then Leupold, almost forgot them. Leupold has taken care of me since day one. And, that's a product that you can't really put a price tag on because, I was overseas and we had, Leupold optics. And they work, they never fail. We drop them tons of times. So to have that experience with that kind of item and then, come back and then start buying civilian stuff, why wouldn't you buy the same stuff, that is rugged, that you can beat up and destroy and it still works?
Yeah. Leupold's a great example of a product that translates really, really well. And you have the ability to not only purchase it and use it here, but it has the quality of something that's used overseas. They're an undervalued brand in terms of what they bring to the table in so many ways because they do have far superior products. And I think they're known for certain things, but I think they do a lot of things right.
They have a lifetime guarantee. So just a quick story of a friend that came to me because he's like, hey, I see you're using Leupold stuff. I have my granddad's scope, this old gold ring. And he's like, what do you think I should do? I was like, if you send it into them and tell them hey, this is sentimental, they'll fix that one. And if they can't fix that one, they'll give you a new one and send you your sentimental one back. And that's what they did. They couldn't fix that one because of how old the technology was. So they, sent him a brand new one and still sent him the old one back. What company does that?
The only company I would say is close. It's a different product. It's close. It would be Vortex. I'm a huge fan of their stuff.
Yeah.
But the only company, but they, obviously they mimicked the assurances and the quality guarantees from somebody else. And Leupold was one of the first. But that's amazing. You can't beat that.
Optics classes aside, Vortex does make a wonderful optic too. The shout out to their new, 10 power optic. I can't wait to get my hands on one of them.
Yeah. When I look at them, it's the conversation I have more with people is they're like, oh, why do you, I say dollars. It's okay. Let's back up. It's like the Inforce argument, right? So when you make the Inforce argument, what I try to explain to people is dollars to lumens. Inforce makes an amazing product. And people are like, well, what do you mean? I go, how much would it cost you for X, Y, or Z, right? Product, light. Okay, I'm not going to pick on another company. Say $400. I'm like, you could buy 3 Inforces for that.
And I know which other company you're talking about. And, I have 6 or 7 of their lights too. But 6 or 7 of their lights, you're looking at $2,500.
Right.
And, and I've broken just as many of theirs doing the same shit with Inforce lights. So it's
the reality is not everybody has the money to shell out for something of that quality. So, it's kind of, it's one of those things, you have to weigh it dollars to donuts is what I always say, where do you get supreme value? Who makes a good value product? Because shit, if you have unlimited money, I can show you a lot of stuff that's really good if you have unlimited money. But if you have unlimited money and you start spending it foolishly all over the place, is that something you can really outfit, all your equipment with properly? Can you do it the way you want to?
As you know, guns have turned into like how, car people were in the early 2000s. Like, there's people now that they spend so much money on their firearm. Like, they got like a 10K rifle, AR style. And they've never taken a day of fucking, training. And it's just like, early 2000s, all these people wanted to trick out race cars, but they never went to a class to learn how to drive one. You know what I'm saying?
Totally. Now, let's have some fun. And I did this with Clint. Let's fix the industry for a minute. When you look out there and you look at brands and you walk the shows, and we've all done this, who do you look at from afar and you're like, damn, I just wish they'd get it right? And I think that's a safe way to put it. Like, who do you look at from afar and you're like, what the fuck?
They're probably going to hate on me a little bit for saying it, but I would say Kalashnikov USA is one of them. Right? So Kalashnikov, what do you think of immediately? You think of an AK. Didn't this SHOT Show, they finally released an actual AK? Their first two product launches were a KR9, which is an AK chambered in 9mm, based off the Vityaz, if I'm saying that right.
Mm-hmm.
And they released the shotgun, the Comrade, or whatever they called it. So you literally released a 12-gauge shotgun and a 9mm, but your name is Kalashnikov USA. Right. Why did you not release an AK as your first platform? Like a 7.62 or a 5.45 or even a 5.56. Like, that was just something that, like, it took like 3 years for them to release one, and I'm like, why? Like, your brand audience.
Yeah, there's so much. There's a lot in that market. I brought up to Clint I always jump in, and I'm not afraid to say it. I mentioned to Clint, like brands, like I look at marquee brands that have been around forever. It's easy to say who gets it right, but I look at brands like Browning. I brought that up to Jerry and to Clint, and Jerry actually came right out and said, he goes, yeah, you're right. I'm like, I'd love to see Browning get it right. When I go by their booth, it's almost like they're all over the place, Pete. They're like, they got their logo on water bottles, on this, on that. I'm like, can you guys just, like, I don't know what they're selling in their booth.
What are you guys making now?
Yeah, what are you into? And, I just wish, like a brand like that, for example, I just wish they'd get it right. Like, I wish they'd sit down and say, we got to dial this in here, guys. We got to figure this out. What are we doing? And, they're one of those brands that I take that posture with. I think for a while I've looked at Kimber like, geez, I just wish they'd figure it out. I don't know what's going on there or what the goals are or what they're trying to accomplish. But, there's
I remember when Kimber had $2,000 1911s, and they were selling like hotcakes. And now I go to a gun store and they got like $1,000 1911 that'll sit on the shelf for months.
Yeah, and how do we fix them? I mean, what do you think some of the disconnect problems are? What do you see?
I mean, I guess it would just be end user. What is your target end user? A 1911. We'll just tackle a 1911, right? A classic firearm that everyone wants to argue whether it's still modern enough to be used as a concealed carry or a service pistol or any of that other jazz. So it's like, what's your target audience? How many people are picking up a 1911 as either their first gun or their 17th gun? And I mean, out of the gun people I know, there's only a handful of them that have 1911s, and if they do own a 1911, they own multiple 1911s.
Yeah,
because I own two. I own a tricked out operator and then a M45 A1 Colt, Commando Marstock pistol. That was a gift from Mike Jones.
Yeah, the 1911 market. Yeah, I can't agree with you more. And there's so many companies. There's small brands, everything. I think you worked for a slightly larger one. I think along the way, some of the mistakes that they make are small and very fixable, and it's easy. It's a shift. But I think a lot of it stems from the failure to understand who they're marketing to, what that market's really looking for, and understanding the end user. Browning to me has a sterling name in the industry, right? So, but when you look at their booth, it's all discombobulated. I don't know if they're selling ammo or water bottles or clothing. It's almost like they've thrown their name on everything, and like they're like, let's figure it out. You know what I mean? And you have to kind of start to sift through that and understand, like, okay, like, what are we trying to be here? And you look at a brand like SIG and they do it so seamlessly, right? Like Tom has it dialed in where it's like, all the different lines they carry. It's easy to understand the different lines, where they fit, how they plug into the overall brand and the brand identification. But, when you walk around these shows, it's not a bad thing. It's just, there's a disconnect, there's a fierce disconnect, and this goes on in every industry, and you're trying to figure out what that disconnect is and how to get it right, but, at the end of the day, I think there's so many great companies out there, especially at SHOT, when you walk that bottom level and you get to kind of bounce around, and some are so close, they have a cool idea or something, they just can't get over the hump. And, we've been fortunate to know a lot of great brands out there that have come through the lines a little bit and crossed over and managed to become something. And you look at like a brand like Breakthrough Clean, which I'm a huge fan of. I worked for years, disclaimer, and what Eric's been able to do with coming into a space he probably had no business being in, you know what I mean? And he's able to carve out a niche. Even Inforce, who you brought up earlier, another one, able to carve out a niche over the last, 5-8 years. There's so many cool brands out there. I look at some small ones and I'm like, wow, like this could really be on the cusp of getting it really right.
I like a lot of brands that were only doing military contracts that now transferred to make some more civilian stuff. Give a little shout out to B.E. Myers.
Yes.
I use their products in the military, and then it was a niche laser market in the military, and then now they're making civilian legal lasers, the mall, for people with night vision and stuff. And like, that's really cool to see that you don't see a lot often as a company that, is doing DOD stuff. And then they're like, hey, we'll make a civilian product too. Cause I'm sure it's a lot harder.
Yeah. The CEO's coming on the show.
Oh, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tell him I said, hey, he's a wonderful human being. He helped me, when I was in the service still, and, with like, Army stuff, right? Cause he used to be an officer. And I had to write like some con ops and stuff like that because we didn't have a lieutenant for a little bit, and I was a platoon sergeant. And I knew he was an alpha at one point, so I hit him up and was like, "Hey man, can you go over this a little bit for me?" And he did, and like made some corrections. But it was like having the ability to message a fellow vet that served in that position and help out, and then thinking about that he's a CEO of this multi-million-dollar company. And like, he's just responding via a Facebook Messenger to help me out. Like, that was really cool.
Can you explain to some people that don't understand, this is a good question for you, that don't understand what it means, even from a nylon perspective and an equipment perspective, what it means that it's for the military only, and what the difference is and what you should be buying? Because some guys, I had some people ask me and I explained to them, why they should buy. For example, you have LBT, and then you have LBT tactical, and trying to explain the difference, what Matbach is. Yeah, LBX. Yeah. And then you have, Matbach, and, what Matbach is really designed to do. And then you have like B.E. Myers, which would be the next layer up, which is equipment, and why some of it is available to military only, and why some, because people don't understand it. And I wanted to come right from you because you've worked in that field.
So, obviously, hopefully I don't trip on any words, but we'll just take a LBT, LBX, because, I'm still on NDAs for other companies. But so LBT would be made in America. The materials were sourced in America, sewed by American workers, which means it would be what's called Berry compliant, which means it could be bought and sold to the DoD, because that's how the DoD works. They will not buy overseas stuff unless they have to. So you can get a contract number. Once you get that contract number, then you go to the front of the line. So LBT's other company, LBX, would be sourced overseas, whether it's made in, Taiwan, Japan, textile manufacturing. That stuff can't be sold to the DoD unless it's under a certain contract, which is super rare. So a couple companies that I worked for, one side of it was just DoD manufacturing and the other side was civilian manufacturing. So people got to understand, to make a product and make it affordable, if you make it in America, sold by Americans, it's going to be expensive. If you make it overseas, you can cut down your costs a little bit, but then you still got to pay, export costs. When it comes to weapons and stuff, malls and stuff like that, you have what's called ITARs, International Trade Agreement, whatever it stands for. So that means, it's a higher level laser or, it's a higher level item that civilians aren't allowed to have because it's, whether it's eye safe when dealing with lasers or, they don't want you shipping it overseas. I know tons of people that get in trouble every year for trying to ship night vision overseas to other countries, not realizing, you can't ship night vision to other countries. Like that stuff is controlled and regulated. So.
Yeah, most folks don't understand the logistics involved in it, and there's many layers to ITAR and understanding. Yes,
it's huge. It's so huge. Yeah, I only know like a little bit of it.
Yeah, you can have certain things in this country, but the fear is more you shipping it or you sending it or it ending up on the border somewhere, and they're going to be like, how the hell did this get here? And in many ways, that can get you more jammed up than a lot of other things. So,
So even uniforms, like people don't realize, like certain uniforms used to be ITARs controlled because they didn't want, our troops overseas running into people wearing those uniforms. There's a couple buddies of mine that worked, in a special place, and they did a mission, and they found dudes on objectives with U.S. uniforms that were controlled, with night vision goggles and Peltors and all this Gucci stuff that is not even allowed to be shipped overseas, and some bad guys had it. So it's like one of those things where you're like, the guy you're messaging, in Italy or, Japan that just wants to buy night vision, he might be selling that to somebody else in some other country because, it's easier to get out of that country.
Yeah, it's pretty insane because people don't think of it in that context and they don't understand what's really involved. And they ship something or they're trying to act in good faith, but the other person on the other end isn't. And that's
but it should also show them how awesome it is to, be in America. Like, the whole 2A stuff, we're allowed to own guns and nights and lasers. We're allowed to own night vision goggles for crying out loud.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And the technology for civilian side is just as good, if not better in many cases. There are some things that are not. I get that. But for the most part, now companies are doing a great job giving you access to a good percentage, a good chunk of what most guys are using, but there are just some restrictions, and those restrictions have to be honored because of reasons just like you brought up, and that's part of the whole shtick. And ITAR runs deep. In many ways, you can get in more trouble for violating ITAR than you can for violating NFA or other things. ITAR can really hang you in because we're talking about situations where guys are mailing crates of stuff, and that can get you really jammed up.
Oh yeah, and I mean it's always a thing you see on eBay and all the underground markets, like people trying to sling stolen military, like lasers and stuff like that. And everybody wants the full powered laser, but it's like be careful who you're buying from, man. You're gonna go in to buy something that's gonna be a CID guy.
Exactly. So it's pretty crazy. Where does it go from here? Where does the business go from here post COVID? How does this roll? How does this play out in your mind?
So I've gotten the industry or my business?
Well, we'll start with the industry and then we'll get to your business.
So, I mean, with all these people supposedly not working, guns are flying off the shelves. Products are flying off the shelves. The manufacturer dudes I'm talking to are like, I can't keep anything in stock to even ship you to do a video on.
Right.
So for all these people that aren't working, they're sure buying a lot of firearms stuff. I think, we might be under quarantine for a little bit longer. We might start and come out of it a little bit in May, to try to beat that whole hump, the whole curve. But I I don't know. I kind of see it being like the chicken pox. You know, eventually you're going to catch it. You're going to get sick. You're going to get over it.
Yeah.
Because it's always going to be out there now.
You know, the thing is, where we're at right now, at some point, the cure starts to be worse than the disease. And that's what I brought up to someone. So we have to come out of it, right? I think we'll stay to the 30-day timetable, and then it's going to be one of those things. They might layer people back to work like the first week, and I think it might be in age groups. They might do it in age groups. So they'll say, you know, everybody 18 to 16 to 29 can go back to work. Then everybody 30 to 45 or 50 can go back to work. And then they're going to, you know, they'll ease people back in. They have to.
They might start doing it like, you know, depending on what the shop is, you know, they might open up, you know, certain retail shops and then restaurants and then bars. Cause I mean, as you understand cash flow, you understand that. So many businesses are just done.
Yeah. The new normal is going to be different. I mean, I said this to someone, I said, let's say this all goes away tomorrow. Do you really think people are going to be in a hurry to like fill up a bar room?
No.
I think movie theaters are done. Done. I'd have a hard time believing movie theaters will make a comeback because now you just see too many people. Like they've even sent some movies directly to home. I just say, why not do that permanently? You know?
Well, they're trying to cash in on that $54 popcorn I got to buy.
I think movie theaters, I think movie theaters are going to have a hard time battling back from this just overall, because I just think the new normal is, fuck it, I'll watch a movie at home, you know? Movie theaters have been dying for a long time, and now a lot of producers and everybody want to go direct to Netflix anyway because of the freedom. You know, it's part of that cable TV thing. I just see cable TV as suffering. I think, you know, movie theaters are going to suffer for a while. It's just, what's your rush going to be to go back to a crowded area? You know, shows are going to be very different.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are just missing restaurants. You know, the people who, you know, weren't used to cooking all the time. Like, I mean, you've been to my house. You know, I love cooking and grilling out and all that stuff. But I know people, you know, who aren't used to cooking more than twice a week. They go out, and now they've been forced to cook at their house, and they're just jonesing to go out to a Mexican restaurant. You know? Yeah,
I mean, it's going to be a new normal for sure, and that's what I anticipate coming in, and that's what I anticipate seeing play out. I think as far as the industry goes, I think we're going to have to take a long, deep dive look at shows and how shows are constructed. I just think its attendance will be down, way down. I think they'll slowly drip back to normal, but a lot of the smaller type shows are going to be harder to maintain. It's the money and what's involved in getting people out. You know, travel's going to be tough for a while. I just think, you know, you just have to put yourself in the mindset, okay, all the regulations get lifted tomorrow. You going to be in a rush to go back to a crowded mall?
Yeah, no, I'm actually, I am really excited to see if, you know, TriggerCon, you've been to that a bunch of times.
Yeah.
That's something that's, you know, in my backyard by the wonderful people at Rainier Arms. I'm really excited to see if they put it on, you know, because it's going to be right at that cusp, you know, the end of the July, beginning of August. Like, is it going to be, you know, still lucrative to have these companies fly out and set up in Bellevue and to put on a show, you know, because they put on a wonderful show.
I think if they're smart, it's a great show. I think if John's smart and Ari and everybody there, they won't for this year. They'll forego it this year. And I'm not saying there's a right or wrong decision here. I don't know it. I think if they're smart, just to avoid that whole debate, they'll just stay out of it, abstain this year. My opinion.
Yeah.
But, you know, I could be wrong. I know that's not what some people want to hear, but if I'm in charge of that company for a day, you know what I'm saying? Guys, we're going to squash this show for this year. Let's focus on shot. The industry's making money. Let's not take the riverboat gamble of this not paying off.
Yeah, I mean that is a gamble, you know, like, hey, is everyone going to be in a rush to get out and see a tactical show because, you know, they missed the NRA. The NRA got shut down. A lot of local shows got shut down. Like, this will probably be the first one that pops up. Is it are people going to rush out to go to it?
You're better off saying, let's abstain from that. It's like Carry Guard. Carry Guard's around the same time, or was. You're better off scrapping every show, every what major shows are left for 2020, and saying, let's put all our eggs into SHOT, and let's make SHOT a huge success, and then build off of that into NRA.
Did they do that for the Arnold and everything else this year?
Yeah. Arnold still had the competition. The show was canceled. The floor.
Okay. Yeah. Because I know we got a lot of the gym we go to. We had a lot of people getting ready to compete in like local shows, and then that's right when all this happened. So they were trying to do like an online thing and just have the competitors show up, but it got scrapped. And I feel real bad for those people who, I watch them in the gym day in, day out, getting ready for these competitions, all the sacrifices they did. And then literally 2 weeks, before the show, got told, hey, show's canceled. And that's just devastating.
And I don't have to tell you, it's the same for jiu-jitsu gyms. It's very hard for jiu-jitsu.
Hey,
luckily.
What do you think Ruben's doing?
Yeah, he's lucky in a sense. He had SWAT school, and he's probably still a little bit recovering from that, and he gets a little downtime. But I've seen people doing a lot of different stuff to try to stay engaged and active, and people. I've been hanging out with my coach Casey Halstead quite a bit. Because Casey's a friend, and I'm fortunate that I've been able to, still communicate with him and talk with him. And he's lucky that he owns multiple gyms and a lot of different stuff. So he's able to, have his hand in a few things. So for him, he's able to weather this, but he told me straight out, there's a lot of small guys that aren't going to be able to do it. Just flat out.
And that sucks. I've been to a lot of local, BJJ gyms, and then some up in Oregon, thanks to the 10th Planet guys for letting me come and train up there a few times. But you make your money off the locals that come there and everything else, and then sometimes open mat. But now that you don't have that, what are you doing? How are you still making money?
Yeah, I know some guys have been surviving by doing underground one-on-ones and privates, but Casey, luckily he runs successful 10 Planets, and he's, the name down here in 10th Planet and the guy in Vegas to come see. But he's got a very rational outlook about it, but not a lot of guys are prepared to weather 30, 60 days of no money coming in. He said he's just starting to see some guys be like, hey coach, my dues next month, can we put it on hold, or can we freeze it? And, he's just starting to see some of that. And, that's how many guys right away canceled membership. So that business, the MMA business, is going to take a big hit. I know Dana was trying to do the private island thing, and
he's making Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, he was trying to do the Kumite or Mortal Kombat or something, which was hilarious in so many ways. But Dana, now he's got to answer to Disney and so many other different things. So for him, it's
money.
Yeah, it's money. He's going to put so much content out there, but life will get back to normal, B. It will. We both know that. It will. But what new normal will look like will be the story. If it's me, like I said, in a fantasy world of me being, the guy, I would say, to John Wong, to certain powers that be, I'd be like, just scrap the shows, go all in on SHOT. Let the industry make its money, focus on manufacturing, focus on cranking stuff out, go all in on SHOT. That's my opinion. But I don't know. If you do it, because how do you guarantee safety if you do it? How do you say, come on down, no one's going to get sick? Because that's what everybody's going to look for. And the only way you can do that is hey, we're going to take everybody's temperature at the door. And everybody gets sick at these shows.
I was gonna say, everyone has been sick at SHOT Show at least once. Everyone's been
for
sick
better or worse.
Show at least once. Yeah. Whether that's due to excessive drinking or gambling throughout the night or
your
poor
immune
choice.
System getting shot, it's just,
Yeah, everybody's gotten sick at SHOT Show at least once.
This was the first year. I was run down, but I didn't get sick. And this was the first year that I didn't because I was home. You know what I mean? So
yeah, you're used to it. That's your new norm.
Yeah, and I still spent every day at the show, and I still did my thing at night, so I was able to, fight it off. But I mean, you still run down as shit. I mean, you're still beat. So I don't know. I mean, what's your solution? Would you still do the show?
You know what? Like, you brought up a wonderful point, right? Because it's money. You're putting money in. We don't know if they already paid for the land, already paid to reserve it, right? There's some money that's going to be lost no matter whatever option you make.
Right.
So at this point, it's triage. What can you save? What can you cut loose? And then, if you cut loose, were you expecting to make a certain amount back? And then if not, it's 100% like you said, just save all that money and put it into having a good shot, because I think shot this year it's either going to be really good or really bad, right? Like, with all these people in manufacturing, if they haven't had workers, come in and still run the CNC machines, and then, all that, you can see a lot of different companies take a hit because, as we know, so many people OEM. So, you'll see it across the spectrum if a lot of products aren't out there.
Yeah, I think shot will be slow, but I think if you go all in at shot, see, here's the thing. I don't know, how John set up for this, but this is what I would say. John Wong, Rainier, phenomenal. Whatever you decide, and any of John's people, we're behind you 100%. I think if you
it's a wonderful show, and I love. I've been to it before. It was called TriggerCon. Like, the first year, it was called like something like just Defense Industry Pacific Northwest or something. And I went
backyard.
Yeah, and I loved it. And maybe I love it just because it's in my neck of the woods. I don't have to rent a hotel. I could literally just drive down the street and go to it, which is always fun.
I still rented a hotel at Shot. Does that make me weird?
No,
for a couple of nights, I needed a place for a couple of nights. Now, if he was to put it on, here's my solution. Put it on, prorate the shit out of the booths. You know what I mean? Eat it. You're going to eat it, anyway, right, John? You're going to eat it. So I would still, or G-Dub, whoever is listening, you're going to still eat something, put it on, prorate the shit out of the booths, and downscale it a little bit to where you minimize the exposure of the group contact. Like, take away the dinner, take away some of the things, and, just kind of make it more voluntary in so many ways. Like, look, guys, we're still going to do it. You want to come out? We're doing our best to mitigate all the risk. I've said anyway many times, at that show, a lot of the nighttime stuff, anything, it should still be at the show. Like, I know it costs more money and there's a fee to that, but the more, people accept, like, if I came out right now to see you, you'd say, come on, John, come out. And, we'd violate quarantine rules and all that, but you accept the risk. You're like, this is my friend. I'm going to accept the risk. Yeah. So you have to create this almost like our open architecture, like, hey, everybody, if we do this, we're willing to accept the risk. Or what you can do is you can get a little board together. John's good about this stuff, or Ari, get 5 or 8 of the big companies on the phone and say, what do you want to do? And that's where you're going to get your best answer. You want to still do it? Well, we're all in if you're in. If you don't, we won't. That's a fair way, I think, to approach it. Create a little bit of a panel. Just an idea.
No,
all ideas.
No, and that's stuff that's awesome, to look into, of like, what can they do? What's next? As you know, they bought a range out in Kansas and started that up too. So he's got a huge enterprise that's
all great stuff, all amazing, and whatever he chooses into anyone from that Rainier sphere, we're behind you. But let us know the route you go, and hey, see if we can't make it happen.
Yeah, either way, I'm going to be there. That's, I guess, would be a question to you. If they put it on, would would you still show up, knowing that, I guess, COVID's still out there, still lurking,
now,
you could check it.
Ari had, now because I'm in a different capacity, Ari had given me a booth last year to do the podcast. He said, well, if it's for media purposes, we'll give you like a 10 by 10 to do the show. Would I go? If a company was going to have me to do the show, I'd go. If you were going to co-host the show with me, I'd go. If it just depends, I'd have to weigh it out. Is that the next question would be, and I guess I would layer in a second layer, would be, is that frivolous of me in terms of interaction, and is it too soon? Because it creeps right in that end of July timetable. I'd say it's right on the line. It would be a coin flip decision. Like, do I get on the plane? Because here's how I'm going to play this out personally. I'm going to weigh out, let's say we break out of this May 1. What I'm looking at is almost like 90 days of no-fly zone. You know what I'm saying? Like 90 days of like, so he's right on the line. Would I go to support the industry if he put it on? I'll put it out there. If someone from there reached out to me and said, we want to make this big and we're willing to allow media and all that, and we want to go all in, that's what I think all in would look like, I'd answer the call. Yes, I'd go.
Cool.
So, if they said we're just going to do manufacturers and we're not going to do media, which I think would be prudent too, I'd say, okay, respect it. Respect. So I guess it depends on what they do. And, they'd be right on the line of my level of, risk. Because life's all about balancing risk. I'm not going to be foolish and, the minute this is over, jump on a plane, I'll go, a Hudson. I'm going to fly to New York, Yeah. So I guess it's about balancing risk and reward. Good good debate. I like to see what they do. They're going to definitely set the tone. And I either way, I think they're going to make a right decision. We know shot's going to happen. The NSSF's not going to push shot. It's going to happen. It's far out enough. It's going to happen. They're not going to punt it. So shot will happen. No doubts in my mind about that. Losing NRA this year was a big blow. I think John is going to, he's a great businessman. I think he's going to weigh in as to whether or not he can capture some of that tailwind. His show may grow. He may look at the metric. I think if he's smart, and he is, he'll get 5 or 8 of these companies on the phone and say, what do you think? That's what I think he'll do. That's what I'd do if I was in that spot. You know what I mean? I think that's what you'd do too if you were in that spot. You'd say, let me get, 5 or 8 of the big players that I have involved on the phone, and let me see. Let me gauge. Because you can't do a show without companies. So if the companies are out, there goes the show, right? So it's got to weigh that. It's amazing, man. We could go on for hours.
No, it is. And it's good to be able to bounce off ideas. And
this is what we do anyway on the phone. This is like,
This is a normal conversation. Like, this isn't even a podcast. This is what we normally do on the phone.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting how it plays out. I think the president's handled it amazingly. Not to make it political, but I think, all in all, I think he's done the best job he could do. You got to remember, I keep trying to explain this to people. We live in a great country, and they're not responsible for our health care, and this isn't coming from me. This came from a board-certified surgeon I spoke to. Health care is private. We have the luxury of choosing our health care. The president stepped in because it's a pandemic. And, thank God he closed the borders when he did. Thank God he was decisive in his actions. Thank God he stepped up and did some of those things, because had he not, it'd be worse. But
yeah, not to get political, but everyone will always criticize any move he makes. If he did close it, people will bitch.
He's damned if he does, damned if he does.
Yeah. So I like anyone that makes a decision, right? I come from the service, right, wrong, or indifferent. As long as you made a decision and you had something to back your decision, I don't care. I'll support you. It's those who sit back and do nothing that I would never follow.
A good decision violently executed now is better than a great decision later, right?
Absolutely. So I just think it's awesome that we made decisions, we stuck with them, and we went, and like, I've gotten super lucky during this whole COVID thing. The only thing it really, really, really bothered me is I can't go to the gym. So I've been running, and lifting weights out back. And then just the price of ammo. I was lucky enough that every month, the first of the month, I dump a few grand and just buy 9mm and 5.56. And luckily, instead of me wasting, thousands of rounds training myself, I've just used it to train students. So like, I'm still sitting good on ammo and I'm still getting some pump in at the gym.
But other than ammo is going to take a while to come back. We could talk about that.
Oh, absolutely. Like I've talked to manufacturers and I'm like, hey man, can I buy direct? Like, can I just buy directly from you before you're shipping out? Like, here's a credit card. Just swipe it. Just put me on the list.
If you need help with that, let me know. I've been working with a couple good brands. But
definitely.
The thing with ammo is I've been explaining to people, they're like, when do you think it'll come back? And I'm like, well, post 9/11 and post the previous election when we had runs on ammo, I said, let me tell you right now, it's 10x. It's 10x. Yeah. So I said, you're probably looking at, I would say 9 to 18 months before you start to see ammo levels regulate. And that's after this all dies down. I had Neil on, Ready Gunner, and Neil's like, I could order a pallet of 250,000 rounds right now and it'd be gone. Gone.
That's crazy.
I know one company that will remain nameless that literally said to me, our U.S. distribution warehouse is cleaned out. We have 4 million rounds coming from overseas, and we anticipate that will hold us.
Yeah, I've never really bought a lot of foreign ammo until recently. Yeah. The made in Russia stuff, like, just because I'm like, hey, this is what's available. I'll set down the ARs for a while, pick up the Kalashnikovs.
I don't know, because I'm not privy to it. You may know. I don't know what the min max at like a Winchester would be for their U.S. distribution, for their warehouse, but I got to imagine it's got to be, call it 50 million rounds, right?
So I've been in a few smaller manufacturing facilities, just for ammo, and like even for a small manufacturing, like, I mean, they can pump out 100,000 rounds, in an hour or two of whatever caliber they're tackling that day. They have a lot of automated machines, but you need people. Yeah. You need people to run those machines.
One decent sized manufacturer, I know, I would say they're a low player, low to mid. They're pretty well known. They kept 5 million on reserve in their warehouse. 5 million rounds. And that was mixed caliber. And they said they were smoked. I know SIG said they literally put 2 pallets of 9 and 223 out, and it was gone.
Jesus. And yet, it's like, it still takes people to run those machines. Did those people go home during the crisis? Were they like, hey, I don't really care to work. I don't want to bring any of this back to my family. So like, now we got dudes, not hitting go on that button, not checking rounds,
So, if you have the ability to crank out, like you said, 100,000 an hour at a nice facility, a top class facility, that's 800,000 rounds in a day, which they have to convert all their machines to do mainly 9 and 223. So, you're going, it takes you about a week to ramp back up to 5 million, and that's just one caliber. So to put 10 million and back into your reserves, you got to run a week straight of 9 or 223, which in the manufacturing world, that's a long time.
So I got a question then. Same topic, shift gear a little. What do you think is going to start reselling from private once this goes back, right? All these people that, just dump savings after savings on guns and ammo. You think some of that stuff's going to come back into the market?
I think it is. I think you're living proof that it is. So if you're talking about private collections, private hoarders coming into the market, I think right now that's what's keeping the industry afloat. I know a lot of people have knocked on my door, UFC fighters, people in different industries have said, what do you have? And
dude, people who weren't necessarily super gun people.
Right.
You know, I had, you know, my accountant buddy, right? My wife's an accountant. So he messaged my wife and was like, hey, I know your husband was, you know, military and teaches all this. Like, hey, could he, sell me a gun with some ammo and some training? And like, this is a guy who he's just not a gun guy, right? You know?
Now,
and he was like, hey, I got a couple grand to throw at you. Like, what can I get? And I'm like, Jesus, man. Like,
yeah, no, I think we all have to answer your question and be honest. I think we all have we never like to say like what we're selling privately. I think we all have thresholds, right? So I think in your own home, your threshold might be 5,000 to 10,000 rounds that you keep on hand, right? Just to appease the public safety. But I think
because I'm not that paranoid, but there is a you know,
there's a min max. There's a min max. Let's keep it there. Like Neil and I were talking about this. There's a min max, and I tell everybody, have a min max in your house. The average person should have a min max of 1,000 rounds of what you shoot. So if you shoot 9 or you shoot 223, let's say your min you always have rotating is 1,000 rounds in the house. And here's why I say that. I say that because I said to one person the other day, I go, short of a zombie invasion, the deadliest person in human history had about, you know, say 200 kills. You'd be one of the deadliest people in human history if you had 200 kills. So let's go off that benchmark. Let's say, you know, this gets ugly. The worst case scenario, total insanity in the streets. You can only shoot what you have loaded in mags. Let's start there. Well, I only have 5 mags. Okay. So you're going to sit there and reload mags if you're in a fucking full-blown shootout? It's a stretch. You know, let's not get into the bunker mentality. So let's say you have 10 mags of each of what you shoot. So you need to top those all off, and then let's say you have corresponding rounds to reload those. 300 in AR rounds, that's 600 total rounds. I'd say you're set up pretty good if you have that. You're set up. You're in a good place. So operating off of our personal min-maxes which is, you know, what we have. You and I are a little more on the extreme side. So let's say we have 10,000 rounds. We're not going to sell or put out into the market much more than that. You know, most private collectors, private people are going to hunker down. You and I might be like, you know what, now's a good time to offload some ARs we had laying around. Now's a good time to offload a couple pieces, right? So we'd offload maybe a third or a fourth, a quarter of our collection, so to speak, because we know the market, right? Like now's a good time to sell stock, right? So or to buy, depending on how you're looking at it. But now our stock, our commodity is firearms. Like when it's a good time to sell wine, you sell wine. So it's a good time to offload some stuff, make a little back, right? Am I selling Glocks yet? No. Am I selling SIGs yet? No. But I'm not that hard up. Am I selling some training ammo, some ball because people need it? Yeah. Am I at the point?
It's funny because it's 100% right.
Yeah. Now, am I at the point where I'm raping people for top dollar? No. I have some friends. I have some people I'm cool with that I'm like, oh, you need something. You need a bag of ammo. Come by. And what I do is I go right on my phone and I look up retail.
And I like that you brought that up because that's something of why I sold 7 guns within the first week is. Everybody's like, oh man, you're selling them so cheap. I'm like, no, dude, I'm selling them for what their market value is, not the pandemic market value.
Yeah.
Like I'm not trying to make, an extra few $100 off of, some shitty fucking build that I built, a few years ago, spare parts.
So I would say to answer everybody's question, and I'm probably where you are, I'm at market value. That's where I'm at.
I'm just going to sell you what it's worth, right? I'm not selling you the 20 or the COVID-19 2020 toilet paper price,
Yeah, and will it get to the point where we're highballing people? No. I mean, I don't think it'll get to that point. If it gets to that point, you're in deep shit because we're ruthless. But I think we're at, I mean, we're not at like cheaper than dirt prices. We're not like,
hey, you know what's shitty? I've bought things from them, and
never again. Like,
yeah, I've never openly like talked about blacklisting anyone, but
they're close.
I mean, they're close. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy to do to the American people. Like, I get it, right? When it's a buyer's market, you got to make money, economics, but there's a point where it's like, come on, man. Like, it goes on the same level to me as those people buying hand sanitizer and then trying to upsell it. I'm like, are you serious? Like, I mean, I get it. Like, you're trying to make money, and at the end of the day, that's what you're trying to do. But it's the used car salesman mentality.
Yeah, I mean, where are you in it? Same place?
What do you mean?
Like, how much of your collection are you willing to offload?
So as I turn around right now, I have 6 walls facing me, and there's, I kind of do the ladder system of the guns sitting on the wall, kind of artsy, make it look like a gun market in some fucking weird, world. And, there's nothing bare, they're all filled. And then I look on the floor, and I got about 6 or 7 extra guns. So I got 6 or 7 more guns I could sell before I tap into stuff I actually like.
Bravo.
Which I wouldn't need to do, right? With what I'm making now, the government stuff, I'm sitting pretty. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think that's the gauge a lot of us insiders use. Like, now's a good, I would say, if we're creating the gauge, now's a good time to offload some pieces that you've been sitting on that you didn't want to take down and consign and get crap dollar for. Now's a good time. Like, you're like, you know what? Yeah, I'll put this piece out there.
Trade out, I just trade out, put that money aside for more ammo.
Yeah, and not only that, it floats you. Because right now nobody's working, and we're in a mentality right now. We probably will be for the next 2 weeks, where it's guns, germs, and steel, and we'll add food in there. It's guns, germs, and steel, and food. So that's pretty much the mentality. And most people, to everybody listening, most people that are coming around that are looking for pieces, it's a lot what BB said. They're looking for an AR, a pistol, some ammo, and a little training. What you charge for the training or what you say, like, and I would say safely on the street, if you're a decent human being, you and I have some good builds. We have some good stuff we're sitting on. I don't think anything's wrong with $1,000 to $1,500 for an AR, and that might include ammo and 2 mags. It's a fair deal.
I'll do that with some ammo, have an optic on it.
Yeah, ready to go.
And then they always want me to build in training with the sale, which is cool. I'm like, okay, hey, this is what I normally charge per hour. I do a 2-hour minimum. I'll cut you a deal since you're buying it.
Right.
And they're like, yep, I'll meet you on the range. Like, we go to the gun store, transfer the gun, do all that jazz. We drive 7 minutes to my range. I give him a 2-hour class, and he's like, I wish I had more ammo to, pay for more training.
Right. So, it is what it is. But I think min-maxes are how everybody operates. Now, guys who have ridiculous private collections, do I think they're moving a lot of stuff? Yes and no. I doubt it. A lot of those guys that have huge private collections maybe aren't sitting on a lot of ammo, because I know guys that have enormous private collections that have called me for ammo. They're not like big ammo guys.
Yeah, they're into the firearms piece, whether it be history, memorabilia, collecting. But the majority of people I know that are collectors, they don't really shoot that much.
Right.
They just like it to look and show it off,
Exactly. Well, this has been amazing, bro. I don't want to keep you. It's been an hour and a half. We killed it.
No, we go by fast.
We go by fast. But to everybody listening, this is probably as real of a conversation as you and I have ever had, even on the phone. So you got the real deal here. A lot of fun, bro. So much fun, and it's way overdue. I'm so happy to have you. Way overdue.
No, man, I appreciate your time as always, and it's awesome to see everything you've jumped into. It couldn't be more fun to watch. It really is. Like, and every time you include me on anything you do, I feel grateful to have you as a friend, brother.
I can't say, what that means to me. I can't put it into words because it means a lot. And you've been there with me through thick and thin and through so many different things. So, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this. It means a lot. You know what it means to me. And to have you on and to bring things full circle. And you're a part of this community. You're a huge part of this community, a huge part of what I've done the last 5 years. We've been friends for about 3 of those, I would safely say. And it means a lot. And to have you come on the show and share, it's validation, bro. And at the end of the day, I love you for doing it. And I appreciate it. And we've broken bread together. We've spent time together personally, and it means a lot.
No, just keep doing what you're doing, John. I mean, it's awesome to listen to the podcast. I go on a drive, I have to go up to the mountain or something. I got a good hour and a half, and I'll throw in one of the podcasts and just listen to you to, talk to people in the industry and people in different industries it's enlightening. It really is, Whether, you're talking to Team Quest guys or if you're talking to, fighters, talking to cops, talking to other industry personnel, it's good to listen to different ideas than just constantly sit on your own ideas,
It's a melting pot for our industry.
Absolutely.
And that's what I believe. But I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time. Let everybody know where to find you and where everybody to reach out if they're up in the Pacific Northwest and want to get some training too.
So it's just brent.bb.brabant, Brabant. I just run everything off the Instagram. I didn't make a website or anything because I want it to be more personal and more private. So I don't post, like class dates and all that. It's just DM me because my range is local. And, just hit me up, slide into the DMs.
Slide in effectively, yep.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate your time, John, and have a wonderful COVID-19 April.
Amen.